Hello again, my PowerPoint. There it is. We want to pick up where we left off with the last one with these questions that are on this slide. And as you're planning curriculum, you have to stop and ask yourself, what do my students need to learn? What is it that they need to learn? Where do they need to go? What do we need to get in this year or into this section of the class? What do they need to know? How do they enjoy working? What do they like to do? Think about their learning styles. You have to make sure that you're hitting all your learning styles. What learning experiences will motivate them? Obviously, this is not the mode that's going to motivate people doing this, but it is what it is, and it's what we have right now. We have to get kids actively engaged in our lessons. How are we going to get our students actively engaged in what we're doing? What language skills and vocabulary will need to be taught? That's in the lesson plan. I know you think a lot of that lesson plan is frou-frou and extra that you don't need. Vocabulary and activating background knowledge and building on that background knowledge is absolutely vital. How can you do the vocabulary so that students can express their newly acquired knowledge in conjunction with their background knowledge that they already have? Have you activated that? How are you getting them to do all these things? Another thing is that the first draft may resemble a concept web. I've put one in this, I've added one, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Or it may be based on something that you've read in a curriculum guide, you've seen online, you recalled from your own school experience. Sometimes there are things that you did when you were a kid or that you think they need to look at or how they need to do things, and you want to throw that in. It's not necessarily in one of your textbooks, but you want to throw it in, or you want to teach them the way they learned, the way that you learn, not they learn. As a reflective teacher, you consider what to include and what to exclude. What knowledge and skills am I responsible for teaching at my grade level? That's where that curriculum map comes into play. What did they learn in the grade or grades below mine? What are they supposed to do in the grades above mine? And how do I make bridge that gap? When you stop and think about it, if you even if you're teaching, let's say you're teaching 5th grade, we're just going to pick a grade, 5th grade. They are coming to you as exiting 4th graders and they're leaving you as entering 6th graders. That is a huge gap that you have to fill, and you have to think along those terms. How can you help your students understand the application of this content to what they're already learning or what they already know? How does this fit with what they have, what they need to know, and where they're going from here? You need to know all those things and fit that together. How can this curriculum assist them in developing what they need the most? What is it that they do need the most? What attitudes do I want to instill in my students? That's part of the hidden curriculum right there. What are the attitudes that you want your students to take? What stances do you want them to take in conjunction with the curriculum or the lessons that you're going to be teaching? How can this unit help them attain those? Another piece of the curriculum, of the hidden curriculum. How can you help them form their attitudes and their beliefs about things? The values. Anytime you get to a value statement, that's part of the hidden curriculum. What values do I want to model for my students during this curriculum unit? What values are going to be, am I modeling? What am I going to be holding out for them? What do I want them to pull for them from that? And how can I best model that for them? When we talk about teachers sharing their unit plans with others, most agree that sharing a unit plan is very much like sharing the recipes for making spaghetti sauce. No two sauces are identical. Now, that brings us then to Teachers Pay Teachers or Pinterest or anything else like that. Those are wonderful places to look for ideas, great things. But to pick it up and just plop it into your classroom the way you pulled it off the web is a big mistake, because you need to model that, you need to mold that, you need to fit that into your own classroom with your own students and how they learn. Not just because this teacher had success in their classroom doesn't mean that you're going to have success doing it exactly the same way in your classroom. You have to tweak it, you have to massage it, you have to mold it to doing what you need it to do. And no two thematic units are ever alike. Even when teachers plan together up to this point, they're likely to interpret the materials that they've gathered differently and add their own unique spin. We've talked about this before. If we write one single lesson plan and we all take that very same lesson plan and we all take it into classrooms and teach that exact lesson plan, it's never going to look the same. We're going to all hit the standard. We're going to all meet the objective and hit the standard using the assessment, but we're going to go about it in different ways, doing different things. During a thematic unit, reflective teachers create bulletin boards, group activities, work or activity sheets, processes for promoting student interaction, methods to assess students' accomplishments, and ways to allow students to perform or display what they've learned. These teachers are also carefully examining the standards across the disciplines. Now, because you are doing all of these things, you're incorporating, you're molding your entire classroom around a unit. This works best, obviously, if you're self contained, which is mostly at the elementary level. However, if you have bulletin boards in your high school classrooms, you could devote one to one certain class or one group of classes that you're teaching a certain unit with. It doesn't have to be just left blank or faded into the background, as I've seen some bulletin boards that have been up for years that have never been changed. You can turn your classroom into parts of a unit. When I would teach in second grade, I had units on habitats, and we're going to look at a little bit of that in a little later. But I would did broke my year up into habitats, and we pulled that into everything we did. Well, when we did the rainforest, the habitat for the rainforest, we had blue tissue paper on the window or green tissue paper on the windows to kind of give it the green glow in the classroom. We had vines I'd made out of bulletin board paper. We had all kinds of rainforest flowers that I made out of bulletin board paper, and the kids made stuff, and we had it hanging in the classroom because I had 12-foot ceilings and I had to find a way to bring those ceilings down for those children because that room was just so massive when you walked in with 12-foot ceilings, and it was a big room anyway. When we did the ocean, we did kind of the same thing, but I used blue tissue paper on the windows, and we had made seaweed kind of stuff to hang down, and we had blue bulletin board paper on the floor to make it look like the ocean bottom, and we made corals, and we did all kinds of things. But you can do whatever you want, but you need to also don't forget about your class, your room, your actual physical room to reflect what you're doing. This is part of, and I'm just throwing this out as an example of a web type piece that you can put together. So in the middle, we have habitats. So if we're going to we could add all kinds of stuff here. Let's say we're going to look at a habitat for tundra, of the oceans, the deserts, the rainforests. We could add other things here. We could add grasslands. We could add mountains. Whoops. We could add all kinds of pieces here, but we're just looking at this. So I start with my great big idea in the middle. That's my big, huge idea. Then I come out a little bit and I break it down into smaller ideas with the actual habitats. Then from those habitats, then I'm going to break it down even further. And in each of the individual blue triangles, I might have animals, plants, climate, whatever in those. And we would study each one of those pieces. You would take what are the animals that are in the rainforest. Let's look at the animals in the rainforest, and you're going to find, as I did, that there are some animals that are only found in the rainforests in the world. The oceans, what are the animals? What is the mammals, the fishes, the plants? What are what kind of things? What things are in the ocean that are not natural to the ocean? The Titanic is one of them. The Lusitania, the shipwrecks, the planes that have gone down, all these kinds of things. You have more. When you get started with this, it's going to be like a snowball rolling down a hill, and you're going to end up with more information than you could possibly teach in a year. So you have to break it down. One of the things that I did when I first started at McKendree 16 years ago was I was teaching the secondary reading class. And I had one of the sections was a night class, and I had a bunch of baseball players in there. And those guys, they thought it was absolutely absurd that they had to take a reading class. They weren't going to be teaching baseball, obviously, but because they were baseball players, they were athletes, they thought this was stupid that they had to take a reading class. That's not my job, that's the English teacher's job. Well, I tried to figure out what I could do to get them involved in class, and I just was really struggling with that. And I thought, okay, so I webbed out baseball. I put baseball in the center, and I had the National League, the American League, the minor leagues, and the All American Girls Baseball League. And then you can do players, you can do time eras, you can do whatever you want to with those, and you pull all that in, the history, the whatever. One of the things I found that I had no idea with the baseball, with the Negro leagues, that was, I had major league, minor league, Negro leagues, and All American Girls League. With the Negro leagues, baseball at its inception was not segregated. Everybody played, and somewhere along the line it became segregated, and they developed the Negro leagues. I had no idea about that. I'd always heard the Negro leagues. I just assumed it was always that way. It was not. It was never that way. But you can take your ideas here. This is a really good graphic organizer to organize it. You don't have to do it exactly this way, but this is a good way to visualize what you're doing. Then from each of these triangles, if you have animals here for the tundra, then you pull out, then you put more spikes on here. What are the animals? Then you look at the animals in the tundra and you come up with things on that. What's the climate in the tundra? The temperature, the rain, the whatever. What are the plants in the tundra, or where are they found? What's the location? Where in the world would you find tundra? You can do all kinds of things this way, and it will help you when you go to visualize what your curriculum will look like, or what a unit will look like, even if it's a small unit. If you are teaching a small unit on, you're going to teach a small unit on, let's say, let's go to the social studies people. Let's say you're going to teach a short, small week-long unit, perhaps on the Battle of Gettysburg. That's what would go in here. And then you would find out here, who were the generals involved? What's the location? Those kinds of things. And then from each of those, you would have minor the minor pieces to build off of each of those, to build your unit around, and see how you can do that to make it make sense for you. I hope this helps. We would have actually physically done one of these in class, but I hope that helps, just to give you an idea of how to visualize, especially if you're a visual learner. If you're an auditory learner, talk yourself through it. If you're a kinesthetic or a tactile learner, write it down. Write it down so you can see it and you can remember what you're talking about. So we are going to stop there. We're going to stop right here because we're going to go on. The next one we're going to talk about Ralph Tyler and his 4 questions for curriculum. And those are very, very important questions that still lead curriculum designers today. And so we're going to stop right here. This is where we'll pick up next time. And I hope that I want you to stay healthy and happy, and stay in if you can. I know this is getting real old, being in virus jail, but everybody needs to do their part so we can get out of jail card here really quickly. And I will talk to you later.